make it maybe speak for 15 to 20 minutes. Is it okay, sir? Is it all right for you? I'll be trying to tell you, when we are celebrating the Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, I'd like to tell you, what is this Azadi all about? Is it only about the celebration by the government officials? Is it only about the celebration by the Prime Minister, the ministers, the government officials, and so on and so forth? No. The Azadi that we attained in 1947 was something very unique to each and every soul of the country. That takes us back to understand what was the movement all about? What was the anti-colonial movement all about? What is the kind of nation that we wanted to build? That reminds us that we wanted to build a different kind of nationalism, different from European nationalism. And I think that is the most important point that we need to understand. We need to remind to every one of us. Our nationalism is not something to be defined by the highest officials of the government. Our nationalism is something which was driven by people's aspirations, which was driven by struggles in each and every corner of the country. Sometimes we feel that independence has been gifted by the leaders of Indian National Congress. No. Indian National Congress was formed only in 1885. This struggle started long back. You are coming from different parts of the country. You look at your local history. You look at the struggles of the people against the British colonialism. In my own region, own state of Assam, that started long back. And those were not started by the educated elites. They came quite late. It was the very common people, the peasants, the tribals, the farmers, who challenged the British authority in the very beginning because they were imposing tax on every bit of the commodities that they were producing. Therefore, even if the whole movement took a concrete turn only in the later part of the 19th century, but that movement started long back. Sepoy Mutiny we are familiar with, but that is also not all about the first struggle of the movement. That started, if you say first, it started nook and corner in the country. Very common people, peasants, farmers, women, they were resisting, they were building resistance. And formation of Indian National Congress in 1885 was a culmination of it. Therefore, when I say that our nation, the very imagination of nation and nationalism was something quite different. And I'll give you two, three examples here. All of you are, because you are from the banking community, you must have heard about Adam Smith. And what is the famous book that he wrote? It is Wealth of the Nation, an inquiry into the nature of wealth of nation. In other words, nationalism was equated with wealth. European nationalism was wealth-centric nationalism. They were seeking wealth. They were thinking in terms of accumulation of wealth. And that was driven by capitalism. Capitalism resulted in colonialism. Colonialism resulted in imperialism. And we, the people of the third world countries, including India, we are fighting against colonialism. Therefore, our nationalism was not only seeking or running after wealth. Our nationalism was people-centric. We wanted liberation. Liberation not only from British colonialism. We wanted liberation from every bit of atrocities, every bit of domination and subjugation. Remember 1930, 17 years ahead of India's independence, when Karachi Congress took place, it took lot of resolutions, adopted lot of resolutions. One of the important resolutions was on granting universal suffrage, giving everybody, every adult, right to vote. And it was not an easy resolution. Remember, even in European countries, even in United Kingdom, for example, they were quite late. Motherland of democracy, England, gave right to vote to women only 1928. And India, 1930, 17 years ahead of independence, said that we'll give universal suffrage to everyone. That was not something very easy. Even a country like Switzerland, which is considered to be celebrated, its glorious democracy, but granted right to vote to women only in 1960s. And look at many countries of Europe. What I'm suggesting is that India's struggle for independence, India's struggle to build a nation was driven by people's aspirations and people's struggles. Therefore, when we enacted the Constitution in 1949, 26 November, and came into being on 26 January 1950, we need to understand what is this Constitution all about. It's not only about granting political rights. I'll take you back to the Constituent Assembly. Constituent Assembly started in 1949, December. And Pandit Nehru was presenting the objective resolution. All of you understand what is that objective resolution all about. What kind of constitution we are looking for. What kind of democracy we are looking for. And he talked about all the values which are enshrined in the preamble to the Constitution now. And B.R. Ambedkar was one of the members of the Constituent Assembly. And B.R. Ambedkar was responding to what Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, presented, that objective resolution. He said, and it's good, you have given us a fantastic resolution. You have talked about fantastic values. You have talked about, very ambitious principles. But how do we achieve it? That's the most important thing. Unless and until we have a definite means of achieving it, we cannot materialize that values you have talked about. Therefore, we have to have the principles, we have to have the values, but we have to change the society. We have to change the economy. We have to change the caste system. We have to overcome, patriarchy. I'm very happy to know that there was also a, session on women's rights today before this opening session. And my colleague and classmate, Dr. Polly Vauclin, came to speak. And let me tell you that she's very happy the kind of issues which came up in the session that you had with Dr. Polly Vauclin. Now, so what Ambedkar was suggesting, unless and until you change the economy, unless and until you change the rural economy very particularly, unless and until you can dismantle the caste system, unless and until you can dismantle the patriarchy, for example, the independence that you are talking about, the values that you are talking about, the constitutional premises that you are talking about is not going to be achieved. Therefore, what came as a result of it? B.R. Ambedkar was appointed as the chairperson of the drafting committee of the Constitution. And two things came: fundamental rights and directive principles of state policy. There were a lot of struggles. It was not an easy enactment, incorporating both the fundamental rights and that of directive principles of state policy. And directive principles of state policy, even though it is not judicially enforceable, had imagined about a society to be based on equality. Equality, not in terms of political equality of the individuals and citizens, social equality. And that resulted in kind of things which was succeeded. Land reforms, for example, during Nehru's time itself, which are challenged in the court. right to private property was a fundamental right. That had to be, repealed or reenacted as an ordinary right, so on and so forth. But remember, that also took us what we celebrate today as nationalization of the banks, which happened in 1969. How did it happen? And there lies the question, the contribution of the banking community, regional bank, nationalized bank, commercial banks, whatever you call it, the contribution of these regional banks towards consolidating India from a food deficit country to a food surplus country through the Green Revolution. Had there been no nationalization of banks in the country, India would have suffered from food deficit. It happened because there was a conflict within the Congress. Indira Gandhi versus the syndicate, the senior leadership, particularly Morarji Desai. Morarji Desai was a very conservative person. He was finance minister. He contested for prime minister's office. He couldn't win it in Indira Gandhi's cabinet. He was also the finance minister. And he was antithetical to bank nationalization and also to any progressive measures. Now, bank nationalization happened because Indira Gandhi reiterated that along with fundamental rights, directive principles of state policies are important. We have to build a food surplus economy. Now, that food surplus economy cannot be built unless and until you have institutional credit. If you go to the landlords, he or she will be taking a lot of interest on it, and you have to sell out everything. Now, therefore, institutional credit happened because you have the nationalized banks. And Green Revolution happened because you have the institutional credit. Had there been no bank nationalization, had there been no institutional credit, probably there wouldn't have happened the Green Revolution. Had there been no Green Revolution, the farmers' victory that we have been witnessing today would not have been possible. There lies the significance of the alliance between the banking community like you and that of the farmers' community. Therefore, when they are celebrating the victory over the government's autocratic imposition of 3 farm laws, and also compromising with MSP, minimum support price, this victory is not of the farmers alone. This victory is yours victory with that of the farmers' victory. There's an alliance, there's a solidarity, and we need to celebrate this solidarity. Therefore, I said in the beginning, this is a historic moment, not only for the farmers. This is also a historic moment for you, me, and everybody. Now, Biju Krishnan has talked about the new liberal economy. What is this new liberal economy? This is basically fundamentalism. I call it market fundamentalism. There is social fundamentalism, religious fundamentalism, through the forms of communalism. Then you have the market fundamentalism. I'll give you statistics. Do you know what is the total budgetary allocation of Government of India? It is 30 lakh crore, 2021-22, 30 lakh crore. And do you know what is the worth of resources of Mukesh Ambani? It is 7.18 lakh crore. Single individual and the entire country, 1.3 billion people. You have the government of 1.3, it may be more. 2021 census is yet to come. Figures maybe 1.5 billion people. And you have the government. And you have the government budget. And the budget estimate for the entire country, entire population is 34 lakh crore. And you have one individual in the name of Mukesh Ambani. His worth of his resources in terms of rupee is 7.18 lakh crore. In other words, an individual alone has 1/5 worth of 1/5 of total budgetary allocation of Government of India. This is the kind of inequality that we are living in. Assam, Government of Assam, its budgetary allocation is 1 lakh. for 2021 to 2000, we have 3 crore population, more than 3 crore population. The total value of the total budget estimate for 2021-22 will be how much? 1 lakh crore. And when it comes to the actual expenditure, it will go down. And one individual has 7 times more wealth or more resources than that of the state government of Assam. This is the kind of inequality we are living in. And bank privatization, bank merger and other issues. Why the government has been talking about bank merger? If you have more and more communities, more and more organizations, your resistance will come from different quarters. And it will be very difficult to handle. So if you merge the bank, then there is an advantage. So government has been doing, and these are, as I have said, these are driven by market fundamentalism. What is this market fundamentalism all about? I'll quote, I have already spoken for 16 minutes, so another 4 minutes. If I look at, for example, what is this market fundamentalism? It reminds me, Margaret Thatcher, all of you know that this neoliberal economy is also called, conservative economics. And conservative economics came back after the welfare economy through Margaret Thatcher. And Margaret Thatcher has a lot of very, interesting speeches. And she said, there is no society at such, only individuals and individuals. State has no resources. State exploits the people. Do not tax. Progressive taxation is wrong, so on and so forth. She believed in, only in individual liberty. She didn't have any concern for social equality and so on and so forth. Now we are celebrating that, what Margaret Thatcher said, there is no society, only individuals and individuals and individuals. But individuals are quite unequal. You have Mukesh Ambani, 7.18 lakh crore. And you have individuals whose earning, I teach in a university, now government has fee exemption scheme. So government says that, if some parents are earning less than 2 lakh in a year, that they can be given exemption of fee. In my department, we have admitted 75 students, and out of that, 37 students have come whose parents' earning is less than 2 lakh. So think of, parents earning less than 2 lakh, sending their children to the university. Then you have Ambani's and Adani's. Adani's, resources have also jumped up like anything. This time, if I look at Indian Express report, very recent report, I think October report, 2021, it's more than 5 lakh crore now, which was around 2 lakh or something like that, 3 years back. We are passing through the pandemic. We are struggling for life and livelihood, but rich people are gaining a lot. We are building an extremely unequal society. And when you build an extremely unequal society, I'm very happy that the chairman of this Grameen Vikas Bank has talked about sustainability. If you are living in an extremely unequal society, society will be extremely unsustainable. So bank struggles or the farmer's struggle is not only meant for them. This is also meant for greater social equality. And greater social equality is the only means of greater social, economic, and cultural sustainability. Therefore, when you are meeting here, you are not meeting here only for raising your salary, DNS allowance, compensation, medical allowance, and so on and so forth. You are also meeting for a greater cause, and that greater cause is social equality. And that social equality is the only means through which we can have a sustainable society, a beautiful society. Therefore, I'm extremely glad that you have given me an opportunity to come over here, to address you, to speak my mind to you. I had always been the privilege to speak the community like you in All India Bank Employees Association and other conferences in different parts of the country. And my final word, the government's approach has always been to fragment this struggling community. They want to fragment the banking community from the farmers community from the students community from the workers community from the women community from other communities. And that is the way of sustaining market fundamentalism. Therefore, the moment for us is to build up solidarity. And solidarity is the only means of celebrating Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav means bringing solidarity among the struggling community. With these few words, I have spoken for 20 minutes. Half a minute more than 20 minutes. So I take the privilege to again convey my greetings to all of you, and I wish this conference a grand success. Thank you very much.